Well, hello. Uh, we haven't been doing Bible study, Sunday school, because of COVID. So I did a little extra Bible study this week, and I thought I would share it with you so that when we go to worship on Sunday, we can have a little better information. This week we're talking about King Asa. He's the third king of Judah. So Solomon, Rehoboam, Abijah, and then Asa. Um, we know we get two parts where he's at. There's Second Kings and there's First Kings and Second Chronicles. For those of you who don't know, Kings, First and Second Kings, that includes the kings of both Judah and Israel. If we look at First and Second Chronicles, that's just the United Kingdom and so the Southern Kingdom. We'll see here that kings are mentioned from the Northern Kingdom, but they don't go through all the detail that they do in Chronicles. So when we're going through and we have a king from the Northern Kingdom, you're going to be looking in Kings. And if we're looking at the Southern Kingdom, you'd have a mention of them in Kings, but it's going to be more in depth in Chronicles. So we're going to go through and read the Chronicles portion, and we'll do some commenting as we go. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen. All right. I don't know what just happened. There we go. All right, so this is Kings. Here we go, Chronicles. So I'm using the NIV version just for fun. We have Abijah. That's the king that we talked about last week. And he reigned for 3 years. And go to the next one. So Second Chronicles 14 talks about King Asa starting. We know that King Asa was the son of King Abijah. And since he only reigned for 3 years, we can assume that Asa was at least old enough to know what was going on during the battle that we talked about last week. But we see here that Abijah rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. Asa, his son, succeeded him as king, and his days and the country was at peace for 10 years. So after Asa became king, he was at peace for 10 years. And we see here that Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord. He removed the foreign altars and the high places. He smashed the sacred stones and cut down the Asherah poles. He commanded Judah to seek the Lord and to the Lord their God and their ancestors and to obey his laws and commands. He removed the high places and incense altars in every town in Judah, and the kingdom was at peace under him. He built up fortified cities of Judah. Since the land was at peace, no one was at war with him during those years, for the Lord gave him rest. Let's build up these towns, he said to Judah, and put up walls around them with towers and gates and bars. And the land is still ours because we have sought the Lord our God. We sought him, and he has given us rest on every side. So they built and prospered. Asa had an army of 300,000 men from Judah, equipped with large shields and spears, and 280,000 men from Benjamin. Remember, he had two kingdoms, or two tribes, armed with small shields and bows. All of these were brave fighting men. Zerah the Cushite marched out against them with an army of thousands upon thousands and 300,000 chariots. Now, that term thousands upon thousands, if we look at the Hebrew on it, it actually means 1,000,000. So a little quick math would tell us 1,000,000 troops. That seems like a huge number, and especially considering Asa had 300,000 from Judah and a little under 300,000, so 600,000 versus a million. So he's almost 2 to 1. But we saw that his dad had a 2 to 1 against Israel, and he was able to beat them. So Asa went out to meet him and took up their battle positions in the valley of Zepheth near Marsha. Then Asa called on the Lord his God and said, Lord, there is no one like you to help us powerless against the mighty. Help us, Lord our God, for we rely on you, and in your name we have come against this vast army. Lord, you are our God. Do not let mere mortals prevail against you. So Asa's really only battle plan was to go out and ask God for help, which is a good battle plan. He had access to the Torah, so he knew about Jericho and all the battles with Moses and Joshua, and and he knew about Saul and his son and the battles that they had. So he was relying on God, which we will find out is a good thing. So the Lord struck down the Cushite before Asa and Judah. Sometimes Cushite is put in as starts with an E. I forget what it was now, but it's a country, Ethiopia. There we go. And Asa and his army pursued them as far as Gerar. Such a great number of Cushites fell that they could not recover. They were crushed before the Lord and his forces. The men of Judah carried off large amounts of plunder. They destroyed all the villages around Gerar, for the terror of the Lord had fallen on them. And they looted all these villages, since there was much plunder there. They also attacked the camps of the herders and carried off droves of sheep and goats and camels. Then they returned to Jerusalem. So we know that one of the perks of going to battle is you get a lot of plunder. So that's what they were doing there. So after this, so we're assuming this is probably about the 11th year of Asa's rule, because it said that he had 10 years of peace. So the Spirit of God came on Azariah, son of Oded. He went out to meet Asa and said to him, Listen to me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you, and when you are with him, if you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time, Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach, and without the law. But in their distress, they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and they sought him, and he was found by them. In those days, it was not safe to travel about, for all the inhabitants of the land were in great turmoil. Now, most of the scholars that I've read have said that they think this is referring to the time of the judges, when everybody did what they wanted to, whatever they found right in their own eyes. And then when something bad would happen, they would call upon the Lord, and God would send a judge, and he would make things right. So one nation was being crushed by another, and one city by another, because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded. Then Asa heard these words, and the prophecy of Azariah, son of Oded. The prophet took courage. He removed all the detestable idols from the whole land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns he captured in the hills of Ephraim. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the portico of the Lord's temple. Then he assembled all Judah and Benjamin, and the people from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon who had settled among them, for large numbers had come over to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord his God was with them. And this is something that we see nowadays. If you see one state is more prosperous, a lot of people will move there so that they can have better abilities. And also, a lot of people talk about the 10 missing tribes of Israel, because we'll find later that Assyria comes and totally takes them out and spreads them out so that people don't know what happened to them anymore. But we can see that at least their bloodlines and lineage was able to be preserved in Judah, even though they didn't have their tribal lands at the time. They assembled at Judah in the 3rd month of the 15th year of Asa's reign. At that time, they sacrificed to the Lord 700 head of cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had brought back. Oh, looks like I was wrong. This was the 15th year, not the 11th year. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God, their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, were to be put to death. Whether small or great, man or woman, they took an oath to the Lord with a loud acclamation, with shouting and with trumpets and horns. All Judah rejoiced about the oath because they had sworn it wholeheartedly. They sought God eagerly, and he was found by them. So the Lord gave them rest on every side. Sometimes we'll see here that we look at it and say, wow, they are killing people because they're not believing in God. Something to remember at this time was the original structure of Israel was supposed to be a theocracy where God was the king. So it looks here like they're actually returning to that. And if you're going to rebel against the king, who's God, that would be treason and would be punishable by death. So it's not like some of the Muslim caliphates where they would say, if you don't convert, we're going to kill you because our religion's better. But you would actually be in open rebellion against the king, who would be God. So King Asa also disposed his grandmother, Micaiah. Some of the translations, it actually says mother, and that's just a Jewish, a Hebrew term that, like, everybody says Abraham's our father when they're talking in Jesus' time, so we got 2,000 years of difference. It's just another term for a relative. So the NIV puts it down as grandmother because we saw previously that Abijah was the son of Micaiah. So she was taken out of her position as queen mother because she had made a repulsive image for the worship of Asherah. Asa cut it down and broke it up and burned it in the Kidron Valley. Although he did not remove the high places from Israel, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. He brought into the temple of God the silver and the gold and the articles that he and his father had dedicated. And there was no war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. So we know that Asa reigned for 41 years. So he had 10 years of no war at all. And then somewhere between year 11 and 15, probably closer to 15, there was the big war with the Cushites. So there were some conflicts in there otherwise. And then there was a great reformation, and he was at peace until the 35th year of his reign. In Asa's last year, so now we're on to 2 Chronicles chapter 16. It says, in the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Asa, the king of Judah. Let's see if I can switch this over real quick. Just for some, we have here, it says your screen sharing is being paused. Let's try to fix that. New share screen. All right, there we go. So we have Asa here, Abijah, and over here we have Jeroboam. Nadab, he only lived for 2 years, and then Baasha came in and killed him. So Baasha actually became king in the, over here again, we're talking about the northern kingdom, so we want to look at kings. In the 3rd year of King Asa, king of Judah, Baasha, son of Ahijah, became king of all Israel in Tirzah, and he reigned for 24 years. So if we look at this, we say, well, he reigned for 24 years, and it was the 3rd year of King Asa, so that's 27 years. But if we look over here, we see in the 36th year of Asa's reign, King Basa, king of Israel, went up against Judah. So if we actually go back and we look at the Greek, not the Greek, but the Hebrew, it looks like it was actually in the 36th year of Asa. So that could mean that he was 36 at the time. So this would be earlier in the reign than when he's almost done. Another thought that people have is that it's the 36th year from the time that the kingdom split. So if we look back at the timeline, we have the kingdom split. So we got 17 years, 20 years. So that'd be 16 years in, and that would put us closer to the timeline with let's say his name wrong, Basa. So sometimes we've got to remember that the original language, the autograph, is what's inspired. The translation isn't always accurately portrayed. So sometimes when we look and we say that something is not right, looking like there's a contradiction, we just gotta dig a little deeper and figure out what it is. So at this time, Asa took the silver and gold out of the treasuries of the Lord's temple, and oh, I forgot, I wanted to show you a map as well. All right, so we have here, if we note right here, there's Ramah. So the king of Israel is actually coming down into Judah, and so he's coming in and fighting. And then we'll see later, I'll show you now, so we don't have to go back. But we have Dan up here in the north and Abel Beth Makara. Those are going to come up in a little bit. So, all right, so back over here. All right, so then Asa took the silver and the gold and out of the treasuries of the Lord's temple and his own palace and sent it to Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus. Another name for him is Syria. Let there be a treaty between you and me, he said, as there has been between my father and your father. See, I'm sending you silver and gold. Now break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so he will withdraw from me. So Ben-Hadad agreed with King Asa and sent commanders of his forces against the towns of Israel. They conquered Ijon, Dan, and Abel Nima, and all the store cities of Naphtali. So yeah, I'll pull that map back up real quick. So Ijon, Dan, and Naphtali is up in this area too. So we see here, Israel was down here fighting against Judah, and then Aram came up here and was fighting up here, so that Israel had to leave here and come up here and fight against the larger army. So that's what we had going on there. Then King Asa brought all the men of Judah, and they carried away from Ramah the stones and the timbers Baasha had been using with them. He built up Geba and Mizpath. At that time, Hananiah the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you relied on the king of Aram and not on the Lord your God, the army of the king of Aram has escaped your hand. Were not the Cushites and the Libyans a mighty army with great numbers of chariots and horsemen? Yet you relied on the Lord, and he delivered them into your hand. So we see here that just like with Saul, he was worried about going after this bigger force, and so he tried to take things into his own hands, and that was his fall. Had Asa relied on God instead of the king of Aram, he would have not only beaten Israel, but he would have also beaten king of Aram as well. So we should be relying on God on what we're doing, and not just trying to figure out what we think Proverbs says, what seems wise to a man's heart is actually foolishness. So we need to know what God's saying and to trust what God is saying in things. So for the verse 9, for the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing, and from now on you will be at war. So for the rest of his reign, he was at war. And Asa was angry with the seer because of this, and he was so enraged that he put him in prison. And at the same time, Asa brutally oppressed some of the people. So even though Asa is considered a good king, towards the end of his reign, he fell. And when people fall and they get rebuked, sometimes they act inappropriately. So the events of Asa's reign from beginning to end are written in the books of the kings of Judah and Israel. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa was afflicted with a disease in his feet. And though his disease was severe, even in his illness, he did not seek help from the Lord, but only the physicians. So a little note here is the physicians word. That's like magicians. That's not like modern day doctors. God has given us doctors. So if you're sick, go to the doctor, but also pray about it. Then in the 41st year of his reign, Asa died and rested with his ancestors. They buried him in a tomb that he had cut out for himself in the city of David. And they laid a bier covered with spices and various blended perfumes, and they made a huge fire in his honor. So we see here that even though he got upset and he kind of oppressed some of his people, he was still considered a good king, and people gave him great honor in his death. One interesting thing to note too, if we look back at the timeline, I don't know if you can see it, but there's that little overlap here between Jehoshaphat and Asa. The last 2 years of his life when he was sick, he actually made Jehoshaphat his second in command or ruler, regent. There's another term for it, but I'm drawing a blank on it. So while he was still the king, Jehoshaphat was being the active ruler in that. So that is not what I was trying to click to. So that is what we have. We see here that next week we'll be looking at Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, which is Asa's king. So we also read here that Jehoshaphat, his son, succeeded him as king, strengthened himself against Israel. So we'll be looking at that next week. And next week, we're actually going to be looking at one of the kings of Israel. So we have Asa, who we are looking at here. So the next king is Nadab, king of Israel. And then there'll be another king of Israel, which is Baasha, who we talked a little bit about today. So the reading for next week is the remainder of 1 Kings chapter 15, 25 through 34. So hope that was helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you in church on Sunday. Have a blessed day. Oh, I forgot. Actually, I had something else I wanted to show you too. Here's what Asa looked like. At least that's what they think he looked like. And then there's also a picture of him destroying the idols. He's pretty young there. But all right, I just wanted to show you those pictures. All right, have a blessed week, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.